You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senate?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die. We have another incredible family and friends edition tonight. Ryan Rivard in studio, back to tell us about his climb to Mount Everest and all the other things that have been going on since. That was about almost a year ago now.
Yep.
Close to a year ago, and we said we would have you back in. I want to hear the story and all the other great things going on in your life, what it was like, what it's been like ever since. But tell us a little bit about Mount Everest. What was that?
Yeah.
I mean, just an incredible thing to accomplish.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and it's good to be back. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mount Everest. So I know last time we talked a lot about recovery. We talked a lot about the other mountains that I had done in the past. I think.
Bring this mic a little closer to you.
Yep. How's that work?
That's good. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, there's a lot. So continued training. Went into base camp and flew out to Nepal. Got there April of 2024, last year. And it's a pretty exciting adventure. So a couple of things have happened leading up to it and a couple of things afterwards. When you're climbing Mount Everest, it's an exceptionally dangerous endeavor. And having a family, having friends, all these kind of things going on, of course, you're trying to make sure that whatever you're doing in preparation is as best as possible to make sure that you're coming back alive. But at the same time, there's certain factors that you can't control, like the weather, like the people, these kind of things. So there's always a risk that you may not come home, and there's plenty of people that do. So I've been, in the prep for this, really kind of speaking with the family, praying, making sure that what I'm doing is aligned and it's aligned with, where I'm supposed to be at in life. And so there's a couple of God moments that have happened during that preparation that really kind of made me feel like, all right, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. One of those moments is actually listening to a musician. His name is Thunderstorm Artis. We've become friends since then, but a lot of his music was very inspirational, and reached out to him without any expectation as to what might happen from that. And just said, hey, really appreciate your music. Just wanted to say thank you for all that. And it's been really helpful in continuing to inspire me and to keep me going. And, sure enough, he responded a week later and said, hey, I don't normally do this, but I'm really moved by what you're doing, and I'd love to connect with you. And so I ended up connecting with him, did a Zoom call, and then a couple weeks later, I was actually sitting in his living room in Tennessee, and we were filming a video together. And so, again, it was one of those opportunities for me to learn, hey, if you want something, and this is supposed to be aligned with what your mission is, what your vision is, you gotta reach out and you got to ask for those things. You got to grab those things.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that he could have said was no, or not anything at all. And I continued to do my thing anyway. And so it was really cool to see that he was interested. And not only that, he was working on a song. It's still unreleased, but I have it in a documentary video that I've been putting out. And it's called Legacy. And it's about climbing a mountain and leaving a legacy. And so he was going through something at the same time that I was, and felt very aligned with what I was doing. And it's two completely different stories, but running parallel to each other. And then eventually they intersected. And it was cool to see that. And it was one of those things where I was like, all right, I've been praying about this. Am I supposed to be doing this? And that seemed like a pretty good God moment for me.
Yeah.
So a lot of those things happen. One of the other things that happened the first time ever in 75 years of their existence is Hazel and Betty Ford sponsored me. I'm the only individual they've ever sponsored.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And
Yeah.
Hazelton Betty Ford, for those who don't know, is one of the most successful drug rehabilitation facilities in the entire country.
Yep.
Right here in Minnesota, right here in St. Paul, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. St. Paul and
right in the
Plymouth
Summit
and-
area.
Yep.
But the original one is right there in that Summit area.
Yep.
Maybe East River Road, is it?
Yeah.
I think it's on East River Road.
Yeah.
But in that St. Thomas University,
Yep.
Summit neighborhood, Summit area. Hazelton Betty Ford Foundation, very good drug rehabilitation program. I've had a number of friends that have been in it at a different, at different times, and both successful in kicking. One of them was addicted to heroin, and that's a really dangerous one.
Yep.
Very tough to kick. But and tell us a little bit about your backstory briefly.
Sure.
There's probably no brief backstory, but
Yeah.
I know from the last time we talked, you talked about your struggle with drug addiction.
Yep.
And if Hazelton Betty Ford decided to sponsor you, then
Yeah.
that speaks volumes about you and your character. Tell us a little bit about that.
No, I appreciate that. And so on November 1st of this year, just 5-6 days ago, I celebrated 23 years of continuous
Amen.
sobriety. So
Amen.
thank you. And truthfully, I didn't really, when I was struggling with it at the age of 19, mine was also heroin addiction.
Okay.
And overdosed in my front yard and had a friend give me CPR and save my life. And went through a couple different places, not really understanding what recovery looked like, but eventually found Hazel and Betty Ford as well and went through their youth program in Plymouth. And that was the first place that really kind of laid a foundation for me to understand what recovery could look like.
Mm.
And so they had younger individuals going through there just like me that were becoming successful in their own lives. And so it was a really a monumental point in my life where I got to find that same kind of peace and that same kind of programming to help me align better with my own recovery journey. So, it's been a great place to reconnect as well. And so I've been able to go back and speak to younger recruits there about
Incredible.
this trip and just, what else I've been accomplishing. So,
And how did that all come to transpire with you reaching out to them for sponsorship?
Yeah.
Or did they reach you talk to them and they?
well, so in the first couple of mountains that I'd climbed, I raised some money for groups like the MACV, the Minnesota Veterans Council, for ones that struggle with depression, anxiety, drug addiction as
Amen
well.
again.
Yeah.
Veterans,
so-
they need
Absolutely.
our,
Absolutely.
tragedy. I just, as an interjection, it really is a national tragedy.
It is.
What's happened to our veteran community, and you find it's an interesting one. You find that a significant amount of the veterans that struggle with PTSD didn't see active combat, or some portion of them didn't see active combat, which begs question about what's really going on with the training and just the lifestyle of the military to see such a high number of suicides in that demographic. But anyway, continue.
No, it's good to note, and it's very meaningful for me. I'm not an active military or veteran in any sense, but I have a lot of family members, cousins, uncles, all that kind of stuff that have served or are serving. And so, it was a meaningful thing for me. And the gentleman that saved my life at 19 ended up becoming a Marine himself. And so again, as a way to kind of pay it forward, that was an institution that we looked at. And so we helped raise some money in the last climbs, just friends and family donations through that. And we were able to buy them a number of different computers and those things so they can help veterans find jobs and employment. So that was kind of the start of it, and it really seemed to be very impactful. And then looking at climbing Everest, it's quite a big deal, very well known as a mountain. And so I wanted to find an organization that met the caliber of that kind of climb.
Mm.
And Hazel and Betty Ford, again, stood out for me.
Yeah.
And so I had a colleague at the time that was also well connected with them. And so we both reached out to some of our connections there and started to map out what it would look like if they participated. And the interesting thing about it was, well, if you're raising money and awareness for mental health, for drug recovery, we are that thing. And so it's challenging for us to understand how we would then give money to you to then go back to us, so to speak.
Right.
And so running a marketing agency, I thought about the perspective of, well, instead of having it be this donation, why don't we have it as part of this marketing package, right? And what I will do is create content around this and buzz around this and really continue to amplify the things that you've done in my life so that hopefully other people can find that as well. And on top of it, if I'm successful, which I was, I'll put your flag on the top of Everest.
Wow.
Take some photos of that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
Unbelievable.
it was a pretty enticing pitch, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
Tough to say no to that.
yeah, tough to say no. And truthfully, like I said, first person to ever get sponsored by them. And I imagine I set a pretty high bar.
Yeah, that's a high bar.
So I don't know if anybody else will come in and have that. But yeah, and what was great about it is, we talk about this, and I'll get into it a little bit with the story, but there's talks about trash and other things like that on the mountain. And so what I ended up doing is taking photo and video of the flag that I printed out for them, brought that actually back home instead of leaving it there to be respectful of the people there, and then was able to sign it. And I presented it to them at their 75th anniversary event. I presented it to their CEO, Dr. Joe Lee, and got to share my story with a bunch of people there, several hundred people actually. And so it was a pretty remarkable thing. And it was just fantastic to have that kind of support and that encouragement. So
Incredible.
yeah.
Well, let's talk about you actually on the climb
Yeah.
and the preparation too, if you'd like. I know
Yeah.
a lot of time for athletes, and I consider you an athlete. Anybody who makes a climb like that is an athlete and has my respect as such. A lot of times people don't get to appreciate the preparation of a endeavor.
Yeah.
And I won't even compare a basketball game or a mixed martial arts fight because they're not even in the same universe. I mean, guys do die in mixed martial arts fights.
Sure.
Guys do die in boxing matches. And rarely, sometimes tragically, guys die. Playing a basketball game. But Mount Everest is a whole different monster.
Yeah.
What's the preparation like for a climb like that, an endeavor like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with your martial arts background too, you can appreciate that limbic response, that fight or flight response when you get punched in the face.
No
It
doubt.
triggers it pretty quickly.
Yeah, actually, you deal with it all week in the lead up to the fight.
Yeah,
When you
yeah.
get around 7 days out, you start thinking, I'm going to get locked in a cage with another man. We're going to try and take each other's consciousness,
Yep.
right? And if you're human, I mean, there are some guys who are kind of somewhat psychotic, you could say. I say that in a respectful way, and it's a compliment where they don't feel that anxiety. But
Yeah.
that anxiety is like for me the first time it hit about 3 days out. Because I'm already used to high pressure situations from the basketball world. But that 3 day out mark, that anxiety hits you all at once, and you're like, it's going to happen. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, knowing that and the other mountains that I'd climbed, there were a lot of things that happened on the previous climbs. People in our groups that died on the trips, several, and some that I spent all night with trying to be with them and help. It brings up a level of reality that most people will never actually see outside of maybe a movie.
Mhm.
And so it's it's a very real thing to have the physical presence when you're climbing a mountain like that. But I think climbing mountains to that degree also require just as much, if not more, mental presence and mental preparation, because you really have to be comfortable and be able to stay calm in those circumstances when, maybe like the military, maybe like the wars, as best as I could understand it, you're watching people die around you, and you have to still be able to focus logically and be able to move through that so that you don't end up like them.
Mm.
And so climbing mountains in a lot of ways to that caliber are the same thing. So getting prepared for that, I too have a martial arts background as well. But getting prepared for that, what I was doing is wearing a altitude deprivation mask. And what that would do is restrict the airflow. And so I started with a size of a airflow about a bobo straw, so to speak. And by the end of it, I was down to a bar straw. And I would do full HIIT workouts, full CrossFit workouts, run 6-7 miles with that mask on while I was doing it. And oftentimes with weight vests and other things like that too.
Yeah.
So I was training probably 2-3 hours a day at least, sometimes more, 6 days a week. I would try to take at least one day off to let my body recover from that. But I was also doing a lot of other recovery things to continue to test that mental aspect. So a lot of contrast therapy through like sauna and cold plunge, just trying to get yourself uncomfortable and getting used to that. I think, in a lot of ways, getting through recovery, being uncomfortable and those kind of things, being in those circumstances where so many times in my childhood where it was very intense from all that use and exposure, you get more comfortable, I guess, being uncomfortable, so to speak.
Right.
Especially in, the performance and athleticism that you put yourself through, in training to become a professional basketball player. Like
Right.
that level, you have to be used to the pressure. You got to be used to the mental anxiety that comes into everything and to be able to continue to perform. So I did that for about a good year after the other two mountains, and would also work on another thing was swimming. That was a great way to train the lung capacity, but also to work on the mental capacity. And so I would swim different lengths, and I would practice this pyramid breathing, which a swimming instructor kind of gave me some tips on. And so you would go down, and before you'd take a stroke, you'd maybe, a breath, you'd take like 3 strokes. So 3 strokes, breath, 3 strokes, breath. And you'd work your way up, down and back doing that. And then you'd go to 4 strokes and a breath. And then you'd go to 5 strokes and a breath. And then 6. And then you'd work your way back down. And so that helped really kind of, again, get into that place where, okay, you're lacking oxygen, you're still moving at a high intensity, and you're able to then build up that lung capacity. So I took a VO2 max test before I went off, and I scored what I've been told is one of the highest scores they've ever seen at Lifetime, which was just shy of 70. I had like a 69 something. So again, we're talking like Olympic level athlete kind of intensity. So yeah.
Wow.
So it was a lot of work that went into it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you find yourself from time to time, I'd be swimming and like, you start to freak out a little bit,
Right.
You're like, hey, like, shit, like, I'm going to go do something that kills people. And you got kids and you got whatever going back at home. You got people relying on you to come home. And so you got to, again, calm yourself and remember your why, remember why you're doing it. And I think for me, there were points in my life, as we talked about on the last time, where I was living out of my car, I was homeless, I was doing all these things with my addiction. And I wanted to show people with climbing Everest that, hey, you could come from nothing. You could come from the bottom. And then you could go and do something where you're standing on top of the world. And anything is possible.
Yeah.
As long as you believe it and you have the right community around you. And no matter what people tell you, you believe in yourself and you never give up. There's literally nothing you can't do. I mean, we've seen it over and over again in history. And so I think that was the biggest thing. And again, having Hazelden's support, being able to go on national television and tell people, hey, I'm a heroin addict and I'm in recovery, and these are the things that I'm trying to create awareness around. It was really powerful. I remember coming out of, I think it was like NBC, one of the first interviews that I had, live television, no script, just getting on it and talking about my addiction, talking about overdosing, talking about being a heroin addict. And I remember leaving that interview and I came back to my car and I actually started crying. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, you got 2 decades in this. You talk about this all the time. But I think it was the first time where I really publicly announced to everybody, like, I'm an addict and this is what my life used to look like and this is kind of what it looks like now. So I think it was somewhat cathartic. It was healing a bit to kind of get rid of whatever little shame that I had left and move past that. And I went to a grocery store afterwards, just one that was kind of close by, pick up some things for dinner later that night. And this gentleman, again, never met this guy. He starts walking right up to me and he reaches out his hand and he's crying. And he shakes my hand and he said, "Hey, I just wanted to thank you. I just saw you on TV. And my daughter has been struggling with her own addiction for several years now. And I've gotten to this place where I felt completely hopeless. And I listened to your story and the courage that it took to come on TV and say all these things to people and try to break down the stigma of this. And it really gave me hope. And it gave me this sense that, like, maybe it's not over for her and we can keep pushing through it." And I just, again, I don't know you outside of that. And I just wanted to thank you. And so it was.
That made you cry.
Yeah, it was huge,
It
man.
does that.
It was huge.
I remember I have a similar story from, fighting with the NBA about mental health policy and coming out publicly and talking about anxiety and my struggles with anxiety and benzodiazepines. And, I was hooked on those 2 different times in my life until I got to the point where I really didn't need them anymore. Recently, actually, had a family member that almost died, and I won't even talk about exactly how because it's still pending. Things are still going on, but anyway, it gave me a lot of anxiety, and for the first time in a very long time, I had to take a half of a benzodiazepine, and even doing it freaked me out. Now, I wasn't fully blown addicted. Benzos are different, where you can be taking them as prescribed and still become what you call partially addicted, interdosal withdrawals and things. So benzos are a little different. But, when I was first talking publicly about dealing with anxiety, I had so many people reach out.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this one story in particular that still sticks with me. I got a message on Twitter, and there was this, when you're on Twitter, especially in 2013, you don't know if you're talking to is real or not, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in retrospect, I don't even know if the person was real. But it was a young lady. She said she was from New Jersey, and she couldn't have been more than, I think she was like 19 maybe. And I was only 21 at the time myself. And she said that she had been a cutter previously. She had cut herself multiple times, and she was thinking about committing suicide. And she messaged me like, "You're the last person I'm going to talk to. I saw your story. I was researching about anxiety and depression, and your name came up in my Google search, and I read your story. I just want to say thank you, but you're probably the last person I'm ever going to talk to." And I was like, whatever you do, don't take your own life. Your life is worth way more than you could possibly imagine. Pray if that's something that you value, and go to the hospital and get some help for whatever's going on. I had no clue whether it was going to work or not. 3 months later, she reached back out and said, "I took your advice that night. I went to the hospital." That moment made me cry.
Yeah.
It's things like, so I know exactly where you're coming from. So, yeah.
No, I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, it's such a blessing. And I look at it now and I say that I'm grateful for being an addict in recovery, because you get opportunities to really help not only yourself, but other people.
Amen.
And you never know what that looks like, right? What that journey looks like. And so for a long time, I would never share on like social media or anything like that. I'd have a conversation if you want to have a conversation about it, but I wouldn't share about this journey. And from time to time, I would share, "Hey, I'm celebrating another anniversary." And so somebody started reaching out and said, "Hey, thank you again for sharing." And little by little, I realized that more people need to hear that, because I had people coming out of the woodwork were like, "Hey, I'm following you, or I'm listening to your story." And again, like, appreciate the help and appreciate, like, I needed that advice today. I needed that to hear that today.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have that. And again, it's a responsibility, but it's one of those things where, if we don't share those stories and we don't continue to talk about it, there's so many people that are going to suffer quietly, and
Yeah, no
it's just,
doubt.
it's unnecessary.
Really unnecessary. Yeah, people are way more flawed than we want to give credit to, especially in the world we live in now. Everybody's the star in their own movie. Everybody has a you know, sensationalized perception of what everybody else is doing. Right?
Yeah.
Instagram and social media has made it even worse. We see that with the mental health outcomes of Gen Z, right? I mean, there's the young women in Gen Z are suffering so much from the perception of their peers and themselves through the lens of social media. But it's definitely important to share that story. That's why I was excited to have you in, because I know that the drug addiction piece, and it's like to overcome that, which is a mad-sized mountain in and of itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then to climb Everest was there a direct connection in terms of thinking of climbing the mountain in sequence, sequentially from overcoming addiction? Is that again part of the reason why, or is this kind of an independent endeavor that you can look back and say, okay, I've overcome these things? Or you like, no, I overcame this, or I'm still overcoming this.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to take it a step further. Or which one is?
It's a good question. I mean,
Yeah. Weird thing to frame, even, because it's two totally different worlds.
It is.
A drug addiction's a lifetime thing to overcome, but Mount Everest is a life-threatening thing to overcome.
Yeah.
So
No, and it's a great question, and honestly, it's one that I had to talk with my family about. And one of the biggest concerns, even for my parents, for instance, was, hey, is this another outlet for your addiction? Is this like you craving heroin kind of thing again, from that perspective? And I didn't really think about it until they kind of framed it that way. And I was like, well, I believe in what I'm doing in the sense of wanting to share this journey and share this story with other people so that they can feel some hope. I don't think it's about trying to seek another high.
yeah,
There's certainly an aspect of it that is unavoidable. I mean,
Right.
when you perform at a level you're going to get the high from doing it.
No doubt.
It's just part of that. But it wasn't the goal. And I think also, too, being so thoughtful about the training and about the conversations that I was having with my family also showed that it wasn't like the main focus of what I was doing. I mean, I think when you're in that mix of using and getting high and whatever it might be, whether it's money, whether it's women, whether it's whatever.
Gambling, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think you really stop to think about how it's affecting yourself or other people. I think you're just in it, And so I think having that self-awareness was really important, and to keep me in check, to make sure that I was doing it for the right reasons and coming home. And even before I went, I talked to my wife and my oldest daughter, who's 18. The younger kids, I don't think they really appreciated the gravity of what I was doing. But I talked to them, spent a nice trip out in Disney over Christmas, wanted to do hey, this might be the last trip kind of thing. I want to do something really nice. And so we did Christmas at Disney. It was quite fun. And after that trip, I was sitting down with them at a breakfast, and we were about to fly home. And I said to them, look, this is coming up in April. I know I've been training really hard for this. I know we're kind of dedicated to doing it. But how do you feel about it? I mean, do you feel like I should do this? Do you feel like I shouldn't do this? And at first, my wife was like, well, if I say no, you're going to be resentful and you're going to do it anyway. And I said, no, I really want an honest opinion. I need to know where you're at mentally with all of this. And they both kind of sat there and they said, well, here's the truth. You're going with the best team in the world. And so I went with Nimsday, who's the guy that did the documentary 14 Peaks on Netflix. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But he's set, I don't know, probably 12 Guinness records now. And he has climbed over 50 8,000 meter successful summits.
Wow.
Done 14 peaks, which are the highest 14 mountains in the world, probably 3 times now. One all
Wait, he did the
successful
highest 14. He did the highest 14 mountains
in the world.
three times each.
3 times over, yeah.
Jeez.
And he did the first which is documented in that movie, 14 Peaks. They broke all the world records in doing it in like 7 months with their crew, which the time beforehand had been like 7 years.
Yeah.
So it was pretty remarkable. And then they did it again without oxygen.
So explain that.
So they did the first 14 Peaks, all with supplemental oxygen. And some say, hey, it's if you're summiting and you're going to set the world records, like
It's cheating if you use oxygen.
yeah.
Okay.
So they went out like a couple of years later and then did it again, all of the 14 Peaks without oxygen this time.
Jeez.
And they did K2 first time and I think the only time ever in the winter.
It's Mount Kilimanjaro, right?
No, so K2 is the second highest mountain.
Okay.
Technically a little bit more advanced than Everest, about 28,000 feet, and in Pakistan. And it's a bit dangerous not only to get there, just from the government and what's going on culturally right now.
Middle East,
Yeah.
right. Tinderbox there.
Yeah, quite a bit. But it is known to be dangerous because of the weather. So there's a lot of avalanches, a lot of things that happen, especially near the summit. And so that was one that they did, and based on their timing, they did it in the winter, which had never been done before.
Wow.
So they not only set their own ropes, but summited and came back down. So again, that was the crew that I was going with.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
When you really when you really stop to think about, it's just an unbelievable thing to do.
Crazy. It's
Yeah.
remarkable. And, like reaching out to Thunderstorm, the artist, I was watching that documentary, and that's kind of how it all started. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do next. And so I reached out to them again on social media and said, hey, here's my background. Here's some things that I've done.
Can I come with you
Yeah,
guys?
yeah,
Really?
yeah,
You just reached out like, I want
Yeah.
to come climb the mountain with you.
yeah,
And they were like, okay.
yeah. They gave me a training protocol, and they put me through a couple of other mountains.
Bring this mic down a little bit because it's kind of up in front of your face. Bring it
Yeah.
down. Yeah, you'll still be able to hear. Yep.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I went with them, and they were, they had planned out 2 other mountains. And so on the last podcast, I kind of talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I did 2 mountains back to back within about a week and a half. And the second mountain was known as the Technical Mountain in Nepal. And it's similar to K2 in terms of like technicality with like ice climbing and rock climbing and all that. Not as high in elevation, but there were several people that didn't come back from that one. And I was the only of 6 in our crew to successfully summit that one. And so after doing that one,
Wait, you were the only one in your crew of 6 to
summit.
So,
Yeah.
but people did make it all the way up, but they didn't all die, right?
Yeah. So I was the only one to reach the summit of our crew. A lot of them had to come down. My climbing partner made it up to the high camp with me before reaching summit, and really was struggling with altitude sickness, coughing up blood, a lot of things happening. And so others had bubbles in their lungs, fell and broke their arm. The 2 prior to us, actually, they didn't come back home. So they were sleeping at the same place that I was, and storm hit similar to what we did as well, and they went to sleep and didn't wake back up. So,
Wow.
yeah. And unfortunately, it happens. And while I was doing the first mountain, 2 other people did the same thing. And I was with one of them all night, trying to keep her alive. And so
I can't even imagine. I just can't even imagine doing this in general, but then to go out with a group of 6 people and then 5 people have to turn back and you keep going on.
mm-hmm.
Even that in itself must be horrifying to an extent, right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, I just watched everybody. 2 people are dead. The rest of my crew's going back down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna keep trucking.
Mm-hmm.
You got some samurai blood in you, my man. Yeah.
Yeah. And truthfully, the group that I was there with prior, that were successful in doing it, they had been there for like a month and a half, and it happened to be the SAS, the British Special Forces.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
So
why did they just do it just for training?
they did it for training, yeah. So Nims has a background. He was paramilitary Gurkha for the Nepalese army there, and then also British Special Forces as well. I think one of the first to be both. So he has that military background, and he helps train and continue to do that kind of stuff with the high altitude mountaineering.
Wow.
Yeah. So they were there, and kind of sizing all of them up, of course, and they were like, "Man, this is some of the hardest shit we've ever done." I'm like, "Okay, well, got to make sure I'm mentally prepared for this then, because it's gonna be an adventure."
Talk about the altitude sickness before we get to Everest, and
Yeah.
these are on the two. So you climbed 2 mountains before, then you did 2 practice mountains in the run up to Everest.
Yeah. So these are the 2 mountains that I did.
Okay.
So in my lifetime, I have done many mountains, like in Colorado and Switzerland and other things like that. But in Nepal, I have successfully summited 3. So the first mountain was Labuschagne East, and that was about 21,000 feet of elevation, which again is twice as high as any mountain in Colorado, or at least most of them.
Yeah.
And then we had Amadablam. So that was the second mountain. That was the technical mountain. And that one was about 24,000 feet. And so then Everest is just above 29,000 feet in elevation, which is just shy of like where your 747 flies. So the cruising altitude of an airplane is where we were at. Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah.
So talk about the altitude sickness. I know a lot of people don't, first of all, a lot of people don't even know what it would take to climb a mountain. But is there a big, when I think of mountain climbing, I think of extreme sports.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie that was a great remake that came out not too recent, but in the last decade was Point Break. Right?
Oh yeah,
Point Break's a great movie about extreme athletes, extreme sports and things like that. But I don't think people understand what some of those dangers are, even from altitude sickness. Talk a little bit about some of the altitude sickness dangers and just altitude in general, how unpredictable it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this last season, for the one that I climbed in 2024, there's 2 climbing seasons. So there is the spring and then there's the fall. The spring is the most common, usually through April and May, because the weather is a bit nicer. It's a little bit more friendly, but you have the risk of then having a lot more people trying to summit during that time. The fall is less crowded, but the weather is much more unpredictable, as we've seen. I don't know if anybody's seen the recent news, but over 100 people recently just died from things going on in Everest from the weather. So getting caught up in storms, avalanches, all that kind of stuff. Rescue teams not being able to get there, helicopters going down.
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
It's chaotic up there.
It was chaotic, yeah. So there were 418 permits issued in the season that we were doing, in the April-May 2024 season. To give you some perspective, base camp for Everest is at 17,500 feet. So again, we're talking almost twice as much as most of the mountains that you would go and ski in Colorado.
Base camp. Give me. I'm totally in the dark. I'm like a fawn here. What's base camp?
So base camp is the campsite that you'll spend probably 4 to 6 weeks at. You'll acclimate there. You'll train there. You'll be with your crew there. And that is
so you got to climb to 17,000 feet and spend 4 to 6 weeks at 17,000.
Yep.
Before you ever start your climb.
Before you even climb to get to the mountain. Yeah.
Which is already, almost over halfway, but that's still, that's a crazy climb, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the hike out. And that takes usually anywhere from like 7 to 10 days. It's kind of like this pilgrimage. There's a lot of people that go out just to see the base camp of Everest and get to see the mountain. But in the amount of permits, as we get back to the altitude, there were over 200 people that had to go home that were in line to try to climb Everest just from being at base camp, just from altitude sickness,
Wow.
just from like coughing and other things that would come up.
Yeah.
So I think what people don't realize about altitude sickness is that it's unique in everybody and it's unique in every time, meaning that you can experience altitude sickness the first time and maybe go out again and not have it, or not have it the first time and then go out again and have it. So it's unpredictable. And the other thing is that it's subtle. It sneaks up on you, but it happens very quickly. And the dangers of it is that, you can die pretty fast if you start to get it. So a lot of the common things that people, when they go out to Colorado and they ski, they'll have maybe headaches, little dizziness, dehydration. Those are all very common symptoms of having altitude sickness. And again, while you're at, 10,000 feet, it's usually not in a risky place to like die from altitude sickness. But you'll notice the symptoms. You'll notice you'll be short of breath, climbing up the stairs. Takes a lot more exertion than it would, here at basically about 1,000 feet of elevation in Minnesota here. So there's subtle things that happen, right? And that's just at 10,000 feet. Then you take that up another 7,000, 8,000 feet. And it becomes exponentially harder as you go through it. And what happens is, your body stops to have the oxygen level, the red blood cells to produce, motor functions, mental functions, like all of these things, your cognitive ability. And so things start to shut down, literally. Like your body starts to just shut down. And so you then start to make poor decisions. You can't function. You can't grab things. You can't understand where you're at or process like what the temperature might be like, whether or not you're thirsty, whether or not you should be wearing clothes, like just silly things that we take for granted here, but you really start to, in all other words, lose it. You start to lose that ability to process and be able to make smart decisions. And again, what happens then is as you're doing that, you stop having things like your heart function. You stop, being able to like eat. You get, sick and you start to throw up. All of these things start to happen and they happen rapidly, like several hours, not several days. And so if you're not prepared for that or well acclimated, which is why you take the trek to base camp and you make your way out and you start to acclimate as you go up, it could happen very quickly and to the point where you could go to sleep at night and then not wake up the next day.
Wow.
So if you start to struggle with altitude, especially at those levels, it's super important that not only are you honest about it with other people and telling them because they don't know how you're feeling,
Right.
but to make sure that you're trying to get down to an altitude that's better for you and start to heal from that. And then maybe make your way back again. But, the window of opportunity for you to be able to recognize that you're struggling with it and to take action about it is pretty small.
So do more people die from the harsh weather conditions, falls, or altitude? Altitude.
I would say
problems?
altitude for sure.
Altitude is the number one killer.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
And it's just kind of silent, sneaks up on you a lot, subtle symptoms, and then boom, you're gone.
Yeah.
That's the most scary thing in my opinion. I'm kind of a hypochondriac myself, so medical things sneaking up on me is already somewhat concerning. But wow, that's the number one clipper up there.
Yeah. And so, for instance, one of the colleagues that we had in our crew summited, came back down, and made it to Camp 2, which is kind of the last place where you can get helicopter rescue.
What height is this at now?
This is at about 22,000 feet.
Okay.
22.5. He had 50% blood oxygen level at that point. So to give you some perspective, at an elevation that we're at now, normally we're 95 plus, like 97, 98, blood oxygen. If you go below 95, that starts to become a risk. 50% is like dying.
Right.
I mean, you're dying.
Yeah.
And the
You're talking
amount
about your sat, your blood sat.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, then like everything's like your heart will just stop.
Right.
You'll just fall over.
Yeah, oxygen deprivation.
Yeah.
Yeah, your brain can't function, all of that, yeah.
But on top of that, then, you have other symptoms of like brain swelling. You start to see people that look like avatars, literally, like their heads are blowing up, eyes are blowing up, like just crazy things happening. And again, it's just if you start to see these things, the chances of you healing from that or not having like brain damage or other issues going on, it's pretty significant. And so one of the women that was on the second mountain that I climbed, this woman was struggling with that. She was up at about 19,000 feet on the first mountain that we were doing. And she was like taking off her clothes because she thought she was on a beach. She thought she was having her menstrual cycle and like all these, and none of it was real.
Hallucinations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she started to, freak out. And so we put her on oxygen and had to take her down after our team had summited, and we were making our way down, and we were trying to fly her out to the next town to meet a doctor there. And so I flew with her because I was going to the next mountain with her oxygen tank. And we got to the town and there was no doctor because he had gotten called to some other event that had happened.
Yeah.
And so I had to sit up with her all night trying to, get her oxygen, get her trying to eat. And, she was, by the morning she was like purple. And, yeah, I don't know what happened in full after that point, but my guess is she didn't make it very long past that morning.
Yeah.
So again, that's all stuff that not only is happening, right? It could happen to you, but you then have to also process that mentally.
Yeah, no doubt.
And still have the physical aspect going on.
And
still
climb.
And still climb. Yeah.
So, but you had already summited this time.
Yeah.
But you were headed to the next mountain.
I was heading to the next
again.
mountain. And literally, so I'm dealing with that. Another person went to bed, didn't summit, felt sick, felt like, hey, I'm not going to do that. Went to take a nap before dinner. While I'm flying down with this other woman, he's taking a nap. He didn't wake back up. I'm with this other woman. They come in the morning. The rest of the crew comes in the morning. They're in shock because they had to deal with him dying in the evening. Like literally, that's two people
Jeez.
in a 12-hour span.
Wow.
All from altitude.
All from altitude. To answer the question.
Yeah.
This is just from altitude.
Yeah.
This isn't some, 100-foot fall, 70-foot, 50-foot fall on a cliff, or this is just altitude.
Yep.
Okay. Now bring me to Everest.
Yeah.
Pull this mic over just a little bit this way for me.
Yep.
Just a little bit. Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So you were going to, wait a second. So the mountain where you summited and then went back down with the woman,
Mm-hmm.
she didn't make it. The guy didn't make it overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is the second mountain in your trial run.
Mm-hmm.
Two mountains.
Yeah, and that's
Okay.
the mountain that I did. That's Almadablam. That's the
okay.
one where the Special Forces crew was there. And that was the one where
You went up with the Special Forces crew.
I went up after them.
Okay.
So they had been there training, like I said, for about a month and a half. And they had summited, but they had done many rotations to go up to like Camp 1, Camp 2, come back down. Go up to Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, come back down. So they were doing this to better acclimate so that they knew, okay, and then they waited for a good weather window and they were able to summit. Now, again, I'm not saying that what they did was easy, but I'm just saying they had a lot more preparation.
Right.
And they were with, a pretty remarkable crew, just knowing their background.
Right.
I was with anybody that was interested in potentially doing it, had some success in doing some other mountains, but we didn't really know each other. We didn't have that camaraderie of the team. And we weren't there for that long. We had summited another mountain, which gave me the ability to acclimate, at least up to 21,000 feet. But I was going up again, another 3,000 feet, and any 1,000 of feet at this level is significant.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
these are significant things.
Yeah.
So getting out to Everest, you take that 10-day trek, and you fly into this little airport called Lukla. It's about 10,000 feet, and it's a tiny little town with a runway that's actually inverted, so you're landing on an uphill. And it's a crazy little airport. They got helicopters flying in and out of there. They got little, prop planes flying in and out of there. But that's where the journey starts. So you go from Nepal to that airport eventually, and then you start trekking. Now, the trek itself it's rigorous, but it's definitely doable. You hike for a couple hours, you stop for a meal, you hike for a couple hours, you stop to rest, and you continue that process. But along the way, you're going up. When you get to a town that you're going to sleep at, you'll go up and maybe hike a mountain a little bit higher, or something next to it a little bit higher. Stay up there for maybe an hour or two, and then come back down. That way you're then hiking higher, sleeping lower, acclimating as you go through it. And every night, especially on Everest, we are testing blood oxygen. We're monitoring how well we're eating, how well we're sleeping, and all these kind of things. And as you go through it, your blood oxygen is naturally going to lower as you get into that elevation. Like it's something.
What's your normal sat when you're at that elevation?
So mine was one of the better ones.
It's usually a healthy person's usually 95 and above is considered normal.
Yep.
91 to 94 is considered something may be going on.
Yep.
But still survivable.
Yep.
Under 91 is like you need to be getting some supplemental oxygen. You need to be getting to emergency room, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's the crazy thing. When you're at that elevation, the numbers start to go down a bit. And so I was one of the better ones at like 90, 91. There was a woman from Russia who summited successfully, and she maintained about a 70, 75.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So it's very different. But you're also then, as you stay there for those many weeks, producing more red blood cells, producing better blood flow, and you're just acclimating in a better sense.
Yeah.
So base camp, when you finally get to base camp, it's like a city. It takes about an hour to get from one end to the other. So there's camps from all over the world there. Base
Europe. Camp. This is at 18,000 feet.
Yeah. Yeah. There's doctors.
Wait. It takes 1 hour to get from one end of base camp to the other in what? In walking.
In walking. Yep.
So what's the square?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't quite know. It's on a ridge, and the crazy thing is you have to go through, like you're not even on the face of Everest. Like you're behind another mountain, and you have to walk through this icefall, the Khumbu icefall, to get around to Everest. But that's the safest place you could be in an area where you're not, most of the time not getting hit by avalanches, which happened every night, and you'd hear them. But yeah, so
you hear the avalanches every night?
Every night, and wake up and see it. So the first night that we slept there, massive one hit on a ridge kind of off to the left of us. You're right on the border of China, by the way, too. So in Nepal and then China. So there's two ways that you could summit, the north and the south. And then depending on the permitting and availability, most people go through the Nepalese side. It's more expensive to go through China's side, and it's more of a risk because China, like they did this year, could just decide we're going to close our borders even though you paid for the permit and not let you go. So that was another factor, is that everybody that was trying to do it through China also had to summit during the time that we were doing it too. But yeah, you'd wake up and you'd hear this like massive kind of like earthquake rumbling. And the first couple of nights you're kind of like, wow, you're like freaking out. And you wake up and you're seeing these snow piling going through in the moonlight. And by then, like the first week, you're kind of just used to that as being
it must be kind of exciting too,
it's
though, right?
super exciting. Yeah, it's massive. Like
I'm thinking of it in my head. I can
like,
see it in my mind, but it's got to be scary, but kind of exciting.
It's
too.
awesome. It's super cool.
Yeah,
just to be in that kind of presence of like nature. I mean, these are the tallest mountains in the world. Like you're in the tallest range, and to see all of that,
God exists.
Yeah. Yeah. You feel very small and then also appreciate how big everything is too. So it's a cool moment.
Yeah.
Weather changes so quickly in these areas too. So you could wake up and be sunny day kind of thing, and then within 2 hours it could be snowing. So it just kind of depends on how the mountain's feeling that day. The warmest it would get at base camp was 24 degrees Fahrenheit. The warmest.
Wow.
And that was during the day when the sun was hitting. So it gets much colder during the night, and you're sleeping in a tent by yourself with a sleeping bag, and that's it. You got your beanie on, like you got. I pulled mine over my face, and yeah, it would get cold. Get cold at night. I mean, everything. So you wash your own clothes, all that kind of stuff. It would freeze in the middle of the night, and then warm up and like finally dry in the day.
Oh,
It's crazy.
that would kill me.
Oh my God.
Nothing worse than wet clothes.
Yeah.
The wet clothes alone would
Yeah.
give me trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, you really got to be used to being uncomfortable. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not for the faint of heart. Like
Right.
this is something that the food is, as good as it can get. There's helicopters that fly in food from time to time. But you're not eating the comfort that you have at home. You're not sleeping in a warm bed, like all these things. I mean, showering you do maybe once a week. And they give you like a hot boiling bucket of water, and you just kind of go in a tent and rinse yourself off. Sometimes they'll have like a little shower thing that nozzle or something that you can pull on. But yeah, outside of that, then you're, sitting around reading books, and you're playing card games, and you're training. We did a lot of like ice climbing preparation, tying ropes, learning about crampons, ice gear. And again, everybody in our crew, there were about 17 climbers. Everybody had climbed another significant mountain before coming there. So Everest is nobody's first mountain. And actually, I think this year they're going to start implementing a permitting issue where you have to have another 8,000 meter mountain that you've climbed successfully before you can go off and do Everest, just to try to reduce the amount of deaths that are happening.
Yeah.
So you're going through that, and it becomes your village. The trip entirely took me about 2 months. So I was away from the family for about 2 months. So again, that's another significant thing that you got to be able to take that time away.
Yeah,
so
that's tough.
I give a lot of credit to my wife and my family for being able to continue doing everything without me there, and the kids and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's
Shout
a
out
lot.
to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, when you're doing that, one of the things that you do when you're at base camp is you'll go through a rotation. And the rotation is basically an acclimation time. And the goal is to make your way through the Khumbu Icefall, which, if anybody's seen the movie Everest, that's the section of the climb that's the most dangerous. That's where you have like those ladders stretched out between these large crevasses that could go anywhere from 50 to 200, like some you can't even see the bottom.
Oh.
And you're climbing through that in the middle of the night, because during the day, the sun hits. And although it's 24, with that altitude, it feels a little warmer. And the sun will hit, reflect off the snow, and it starts to melt. This moving glacier field is what you're basically moving through. And so ladders will shift, ice shelves will fall. Just in setting it up, there were 6 people that died. So it's significant when you're going through it. And it's scary at the same time, but also one of those things where you just kind of focus on one step at a time. And you don't really try to pay attention to everything else that's going on, and just be in the moment. So you'll make a rotation through that. You'll usually leave, like I said, in the middle of the night when it's the coldest, and you'll make your way up. The first time it took us I think it was 10, 12 hours to get to Camp 1. Camp 1 traditionally is not a place where you will sleep, but on a rotation, you will sleep there without oxygen. It's about 21,000 feet, and you will do that so that you can better prepare yourself to then be able to summit. So we slept one night there, and then made our way to Camp 2, which Camp 2 is through a crevasse field. So it's known as like the toaster. It's in between Lao-tse, which is the fourth highest mountain, and Everest. And when the sun hits, you just bake in this field. There's no like shadows or shade or anything like that. There's no like ice shelves or anything like that. It is literally just this like barren field of crevasses, and there's no ropes. So you're also walking through it.
There's no ropes.
Not on that section, no. And you're going through it, and like, it's not as great in terms of elevation gain, and it's not as steep. But you're going through sections where you could take a step and fall through, and then fall 50 meters, 200 meters.
Oh,
So sometimes what they'll do is they'll tie you to your Sherpa and then spread you out so that, if that happens, or if there's like a whiteout or something, for instance, and a storm comes, you can make your way through it. But yeah, it's it's uncomfortable. I mean, you're wearing like a summit suit, like a down suit, while you're walking through this, what seems to be like a sauna kind of experience. And so you're sweating, you're cold, you're hot, the wind blows. I mean, it's the extremes of everything.
yeah.
Just to make your way to Camp 2. Now, again, Camp 2 is about 22,500 feet. And that is another like little city. It's the last place where helicopters can fly in and out of for oxygen tanks, for food, for rescue. And after that point, you're kind of on your own. I mean, there's, unless you can get back down to that, there's nobody coming to help you. Because again, there's no elevation, acclimation kind of thing for these helicopters, no oxygen, so to speak,
Yeah.
to be able to get into that area. So it's pretty remarkable. We spent 2 nights there, and then the goal was to try to go to Camp 3 as close to that as possible during a rotation. So the whole trip took about 5 or 6 days, and then we ended up getting caught in a storm at Camp 2, making about halfway through to Camp 3 and having to come back. And the storm was so bad that it actually blew down our tents.
Oh.
So we were like sitting at breakfast 7 in the morning, and the tent collapses.
Oh.
So then me and a couple other guys spent some time with the Sherpas just rebuilding it in this storm, so that we could then come back to that. And after that, then we made our way back down. So you make your way down to base camp again, and usually then you have an opportunity to get some rest before you're going to then make the final push. And you push your way down. What we did in our crew was we went back down to Kathmandu. So we took a helicopter all the way back down to Kathmandu, stayed at a hotel, had some nice food.
Infamous for the Doctor Strange movie, right? And he goes up to Kathmandu, and he finds the ancient one, and he becomes acquainted with the mystic arts.
Exactly.
That's the same Kathmandu, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
No Doctor Strange is up there for
No,
you.
not that I saw, but not to say that there isn't any.
Okay.
So yeah. It's a cool city. It is packed, millions and millions of people in this city. They have like the Monkey Palace and stuff like it's just remarkable.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
But that is similar elevation to where we're at now, like all the way back down. The reason being is you could fly to one of these towns that's kind of halfway, and that's called Namche Bazaar. Some people went there and decided to rest there, but you have enough blood cells built in where you can spend a few days, and if you have the opportunity to go all the way down, then you can sleep in a warm bed, take a shower, eat a real meal.
Yeah.
Like, again, get mentally prepared for this, do laundry. But having that reduction in elevation helps you heal quickly. So if there's any ailments, if you're coughing, which is quite common up there to get a cough, and then you get this dry cough, and you don't get rid of it unless you come back down. And that was a huge hindrance. That was also part of the reason why people, again, from the elevation, altitude, start to get this cough. It's dry. It starts to then turn into like a bleeding. And then, you can't go past that. So you got to come back home. Yeah, I mean, there was a doctor that we met from Colorado. They're stationed there at base camp. And he was saying there was 2 to 3 people that they were flying home every day at base camp just from getting sick and elevation, altitude. So we rested at the hotel in Kathmandu, and we stayed there for probably 2 nights, I believe, and then started to make our way back to Lukla. Now, on the way back, there was a storm that hit, and so we got stuck in Lukla for like 3 days. And we started to get pretty nervous about the fact that we were there long, and if we'd stayed there any longer, we might lose our acclimation and the window for being able to successfully summit Everest.
Yeah. Okay.
And so eventually we got fortunate where there was about an hour window. And they called us up. It was like 4 a.m. And they're like, hey, get ready. We're going to probably leave at like 5. And so every night you're there. You're not really sleeping because you're waiting with your phone. Be like, hey, they're going to call us and we might have to get up and leave. And so then we got up. We had that short window of period. We were one of the first helicopters out, and we got to fly back to the base camp and get ready. But it's crazy and nerve-wracking at the same time.
Yeah.
So you get back to base camp, and you start to then mentally prepare for this push. Now, when you're actually summiting, you don't stay at Camp 1, as I mentioned. You move from base camp all the way to Camp 2. So what you did in 2 days, you're doing in 1 day. But because you've gone through it before, you get to learn about the process, about the ice fall, and you're moving a little bit quicker. When you get up further and further, I mean, the temperatures get down to like -40 without the wind. Everything freezes. It's cold. And as you're moving through it, Camp 2 is the last place again where you're having like a real meal. And then you start to bring your oxygen tanks, any food or any snacks, that's it. And then the only thing you really make along the way is water.
Wow.
So we had prepared to try to summit on the 19th. We were sitting down in our tents. It was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We were going to leave that night. We were sitting down with Nims, and he came in and he said, hey, I know everybody's excited about this, but we are going to go tomorrow, not tonight. And so you're kind of feeling this like defeat a bit because you've been there for 4 or 5 weeks now, and you're like, man, I want to go. Like, this is the moment. But one of the things that makes Nims the most successful in what he's doing is his military background and being able to understand weather and like the timing of other groups. And so we had to trust, this process. And again, it's one of those moments similar to getting sober where I'm trusting somebody that I don't really know to keep me alive, right? And to believe in the programming and the information that they have, even though I don't know what the outcome might be, but to know like, hey, I got to turn my life over to somebody. And if I'm going to do this successfully, I might not have all the answers. I got to let go of that wheel.
Yeah.
And give it to somebody else. And so again, you have to be honest with yourself and you got to be truthful about it. And Nims came to us and he said that day too, he's like, look, the mountain doesn't care how much you've worked out, how much you prepared mentally for this, how much money you have, how much energy you've, dedicated to this, how much time you might have. The mountain only cares about whether or not you're being honest with yourself and you're telling other people. So if you're struggling with altitude, if you're struggling with weather, like, you need to tell us, right? And make sure that you come back home. I don't care as much about you successfully summiting as I do you coming back to your families.
Yeah.
Like, that is the most important thing for us. The mountain will always be here. You can come back.
Yeah.
But if you don't make that decision and you're not 100% honest with yourself and you're being transparent with everybody else, you may never get that opportunity. And the mountain will take you no matter what you are, who you are, and how you are. So it was a good reminder. The other thing that he told us is no matter what you do not sleep at Camp 4. Because again, like the other mountains that I'd been on, you sleep at Camp 4, you're probably not going to wake back up. And we'll get into that in a minute. But it was a good thing to remind myself. So we pack up, we get ready the next day, and we go for our push. When you're summiting Everest, similar to other mountains, it's 1-to-1. You have a Sherpa guide that you go with. The reason being, again, is altitude does a lot of things to a lot of people. And if, for instance, I were to get sick and you were climbing, and you were feeling fine, you'd be wanting to continue. You'd want to do all this. And I would have to go back down. So they pair you up with a Sherpa that is based on your speed, based on your capacity, based on like the skill sets that you've had in the past or other mountains that you've climbed with. So again, you have the high success rate. So if you're slower, they put you somebody that's better acclimated to take longer on the mountain. If you're faster, they put you somebody that can do that endurance kind of thing. That's another reason why I picked NIMS's crew, the Elite Exped crew. So the Sherpa that I had, his name was Pasan Dorji Sherpa. He was born in the town next to Everest Base Camp at about 16,000 feet. He's 32, maybe, a couple kids. And this summit with me was his 8th successful summit of Everest, just Everest. But he's done, maybe 30 other mountains.
Wow.
When he was listing off these mountains, I'm like, you're 30-something years old and you've climbed 30-plus mountains successfully. Like, that's crazy. And Everest 8 times? That's nuts.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
He was born at 17,000 feet.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I was born of this.
Yeah. And that's funny. He reminded me of it many times, as I'm like huffing out of breath, again, for having like a 70 VO2 score.
Yeah.
Like I'm huffing out of breath. And he's like, look at this for me is very different. Like I was born next to this town. I can walk up and down these mountains all day. Like that's what I'm used to. So it's a humbling experience to have that with these guys, but they are remarkable athletes, remarkable. So I'm moving with him, and we make our way to Camp 2. And as you go up to Camp 3, right before you hit Camp 3, that is where then you start to put on oxygen. Camp 3 is about 25,000 feet in the air, and it's located on this ice shelf of Everest. So there is about 100-meter, vertical climb that you kind of have to do before you get there. It is very challenging. And
how many meters?
About 100 meters or so. Yeah.
Vertical.
Yeah. It is tough. Very tough. And again, so this is the point where it kind of separates, the men and the boys here, because you got to be really prepared. And you also have to make sure that you are ready for no sleep, no food, several days of the most exertion that you've ever put out. The crazy thing is I'm sitting at Camp 2 before we're about to leave, and you're at like I said, 22.5, okay, in elevation. And you're looking up at what seems to be a mountain as if you were at like sea level. You're like, how the fuck am I going to get up this mountain? Like it's crazy, right? It's crazy. Because you're like, I've already climbed twice as high as, any place in the United States. Like, how am I going to do this? And it really then comes down to, like I said in the last one, just 10 steps, man. You just take those little steps and you focus on what you can do in front of you. You don't focus on the end result. And little by little, those things will add up. And sure enough, you'll be standing at the top of that mountain. But it just takes a gradual effort and for you to believe in yourself that you're going to do it. And I had dreams, visualizations of me successfully summiting before I did it. And getting back to my wife and saying, hey, you have gone and picked the best crew possible. I know that you are not going to die in Everest, that you are meant to do other things with your life. And this is just the baseline of what you're going to do. You're meant to help people. You're meant to share this story with people. And so you're going to come home to us. And you've done everything that you can thoughtfully to train for this. You've been very intentional about it. And so I give you my blessing to do this mountain. And I know you're going to come home to us. And so I was remembering all of those things when I was sitting there, and she made these stickers of our kids. And I put them on my thermos as I was carrying them up as a reminder to my why, like why I had to come home. what was waiting for me.
Mm.
And a crazy thing too. So my son at the time was turning 7. I missed his 7th birthday. My father lost his father to cancer at about 7 or 8. And my grandfather ended up taking his life when I was about 7 or 8. And he was kind of the father figure for me for a long time. And that's what triggered a lot of my addiction. And so looking at that and reflecting on that and thinking about the fact that I was going to go do something that could kill me
During his seventh
birthday,
probably ate at you like
it
crazy.
really did.
Yeah.
It really did. And I kept thinking to myself, you can't fuck this up, man. Like, you got to come home. You can't be the third generation to leave another male without a father at this point.
Mm.
And it was hard for me. I was crying that as I was thinking about it because I had FaceTimed my wife at base camp before we were about to go because it was going to be the last time I was going to talk to her for a while. And she said, I was taking Graham to school and he's really missing you. He was crying and he said, I want my dad. And that, again, just kind of ate at me. And I was like, man, you got to do this.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it at the same time and looking up at that mountain. I said, he might not understand it. But when he grows up, he's going to realize his dad was one tough motherfucker. And I hope that he is inspired to then go off and do whatever he wants to do in his heart. And he leads with that as the purpose, knowing that he could do anything. And so standing at Camp 2, I went and I kept going. Now you get up to Camp 3, and when you want to get out of your tent, you're kind of strapped into a rope. Because again, like I said, it's on an ice shelf, and so it's very dangerous to get out at any point. You're at 25,000, you're on oxygen, so this is where it starts to become really real about this altitude. And your cognitive abilities start to dwindle. NIMS told us, hey, don't get out of Camp 3. If you need to use the restroom, go in a bottle, whatever it is, but stay in your tent. And sure enough, there was a gentleman from the Japanese crew that got out, went to use the restroom, and fell off the mountain.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Went to use the restroom, fell off the mountain.
Yeah, went to go pee, never came back.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And you're aware of this when you're up there.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What does that read like?
I mean, again, it's one of those things where it's like you have
just
to
goes through the camp. People just kind of know what happened, and you hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
Word travels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. And so again, it just reminds you, like, hey, if your Sherpa or somebody in your crew or NIMS says to do or not do something, like, you need to fucking listen.
Yeah.
You need to pay attention to that.
So did he have a Sherpa too?
NIMS?
No, the guy who fell off the mountain.
I imagine.
But he just went off. The Sherpa didn't fall off.
Nope. And I imagine the Sherpa probably didn't even know.
Right.
He probably got up. Because again, that's the thing with altitude. You get up and you forget where you're at. You're like, hey, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. And so he stepped out of his tent.
A war of the terrain and the mind up there.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so again, you really have to be mentally prepared for all this stuff. You have to process what's going on with this guy and what happens on top of going through everything else. Now, the movie Everest, the spoiler alert, most of the people don't survive the movie. It's a true story. And you go through a graveyard of those people on your way up.
Most of the people that try and summit don't survive.
I mean, there's quite a few. Yeah, the success rate is, I think it's like 25% or something like that.
No.
30%. Yeah.
Only a quarter of the people that tried even survived.
Yeah. I mean, think about this. Like, half the people, like I said, didn't even make it past base camp. They didn't even get there.
Right.
Now, they didn't die, of course. But that's 50% right there.
They don't make it
They don't even
try and
They didn't even get to try.
Right.
So then, I think out of the 200, we had another half of that. So again, if you look at the numbers, there's like a quarter that were successful in actually summiting the mountain that year. I mean, and then that's not including people that die or, don't make it all the way up or don't make it all the way down. So the numbers is not in your favor, let's just say. I mean, I think you have a better chance going to a casino and winning the lottery.
Hey,
you know.
right at this point in the story, it's really hit me. You're a crazy man.
Yeah.
You're a crazy man.
Yeah.
Wow. The odds are not in your favor. When you said that, it just hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
If I go to take a shot in a basketball game, you know, the stakes are not even remotely close, but the odds, you know, it's like flip a coin.
Yeah.
The best shooters in history, flip a coin. He's going to make one, he's going to miss one.
Yeah.
This ain't that type of rodeo.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it too, from that perspective, like best batters, right? In pro ball.
Mid 300s batting average.
Yeah. Like percentage is less.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Wow.
It's crazy to think that.
Yeah.
So you have to, again, be mentally prepared that, you know, you're going with a crew. Some of these people aren't coming home. Some of these people aren't summiting. You know, and these are all people that you're sitting with for 2 months. I mean, you become friends with them. You really share that bond. And again, the camaraderie of doing something that's life-threatening is significant. I mean, you are really bonding to these people. You know, it's like the brothers that you would have in the arms and in the military or whatever, or in the basketball court. You know, these are your family.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. And so, you know, getting then at Camp 3, you know, everything starts to really hit and starts to become real. So moving from Camp 3 up to Camp 4 was one of the harder days for me, harder days in general. We left at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't get to into Camp 4 until about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. So it was like 12, 13-hour trip. The reason being is that there was a storm that hit, and a whiteout started to come in around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And so then you're moving through the rest of the phase without being able to see maybe as close to me and you, while the wind is howling. And again, -40 without the wind chill. Like everything is freezing.
-40 without the wind chill.
Yeah.
-40 base temperature.
Yeah. Like
freezing.
I mean, you know, it's middle of the night when you're climbing. I mean, you're going through the ice fall at 2 a.m. I mean, it is cold. It is cold. Like everything freezes. Your water freezes. Your food freezes. Your oxygen tank valves freeze. I mean, everything freezes. Like even the perspiration of your breath freezes on your chest. I had ice building up on my chest as I'm hiking. It's crazy. So, you know, you really have to be mindful of these things too, on top of not eating, on top of not having a lot of water, on top of oxygen and elevation. I mean, it's just so many things going into this. So moving up to Camp 4, when you get to Camp 4, this is the South Col-like area, and it is known as the death zone. So this is 27,000 feet, and this is the point where there is not enough oxygen at a cellular level to keep you alive. So you are literally dying, decomposing the more you sit there. You're dying. So the longer you take there, the less your brain functions, the less your body functions, and you start to fall apart. Yeah. So we had gone from Camp 2 to Camp 3 hard. We rested a couple hours, get up, you go, and again, another 12, 13 hours. At this point, you know, I hadn't slept in almost, about a day and a half now. And when you get to Camp 3, you're sharing tents. So there's a lot, or Camp 4, you're sharing tents. So there's like sometimes 2, sometimes 5 people in a tent. And you're not always sharing it with your own crew. It could be anybody. You're just kind of finding a tent that's available, hunkering down, trying to stay warm for a bit. And again, you're not sleeping there. You're just resting, and then you get ready to move towards summit. So when we got there, there weren't any tents. It was full.
No.
Yeah. And so we were looking around, at least that we could find, because everything was packed in and it was a storm. So I literally sat on a rock trying to keep myself warm for about an hour in a snowstorm.
My goodness.
After hiking 13 hours, after having maybe a bar, like a RX bar or something like that, and a liter of water. That's it. Crazy thing is people don't realize what oxygen does in terms of functionality, not just with you, but equipment, right? So you have these heat packs that we take out in the winter when we're cold, and we put them out in the air and shake them and they warm up. That requires oxygen to activate. So when you're in the mountain at that level, they don't activate. So you have to shove them into your oxygen mask and let them breathe for like 30 minutes before they actually even start to work.
Oh, you're crazy, man. This is
And on
crazy.
top of that, you need oxygen to start a fire. So when you're at that level, you have a little tiny Bunsen burner, right? It's really hard to get a fire going. So you're not sitting around like making meals. What you have is enough to then heat up some water, maybe some tea, or fill up your water bottle. But that's it. You're melting some snow and you're making some water. Like there's no meals or rest or anything like that. So again, whatever you bring from Camp 2 is basically what you have. And that includes oxygen tanks too. So my Sherpa's carrying like 8 oxygen tanks on top of everything else. Now these weigh like 12 to 15 pounds a piece. Yeah. He had like 100, 150 pounds. I mean, like you're crazy. He's like a tiny little dude. Yeah.
Superhuman.
Superhuman, man. These guys are nuts. Yeah. And you'll leave tanks from time to time, like at a section when they're out, but then you have to, if you're being respectful of it, you got to take it out on the way down. So, I mean, anything from carrying your poop in a bag to then carrying oxygen to carrying food to carrying water, maybe change your socks, extra gloves, something like that. Like everything that you have is in your bag, which is also important to make sure that everything you have is either super light or very necessary for what you need. Yeah. So we're moving up. We're waiting for a tent. He's running around from tent to tent looking for a place to stay. I'm trying to keep warm, and I'm like shaking, holding my arms together while the storm is going on. About an hour into it, it's about 10 o'clock now at night. We find a tent. It's kind of disheveled, but it's able to keep the wind out. And so we make our way into this tent. And I am toasted. Like I am done. The hardest workout I could imagine, just done, fried. And so I sit down and I'm laying there and I'm thinking to myself, like, I need to sleep. I need to rest. And that's why Nim says to you, don't sleep at Camp 4. Because that is the sensation that hits everybody. It's like, I can't go any further. So I'm laying down, trying to warm up, take our boots off a bit to try to warm up our socks. He's trying to get the Bunsen burner going to make some more water for the next trip. And he turns to me and he says, hey, we're going to leave in an hour. And I'm like, shit, like an hour? Like that's all you get? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, maybe we should just rest here tonight. Maybe we could go in the morning. And that's running through my head. And again, I'm listening to Nims. I'm listening to my wife that also told me not to sleep at Camp 4. And I'm thinking about all of the other experiences on the other mountains of people going to sleep and not waking back up. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like you don't have a choice.
Are you sleepy though? Is it like that sleep when I used to, sometimes when I played basketball in high school, I'd be so tired. We used to practice at 6 a.m. in the morning at De La Salle High School. And every once in a while, not often, but every once in a while, I'd be at my desk and get the urge to put my head down. And 10 minutes later, I'd jump up realizing I'd fallen asleep. And it's very difficult to keep yourself up.
Yeah.
It was that kind of sleepy feeling?
Yeah.
Like it's hard to stay awake?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's excruciating.
It's excruciating.
Yeah.
And now I'm at 2.5 days, right? I'm not sleeping.
Oh, man.
Like, and barely
This story's
eating.
getting unbelievable.
Barely eating anything.
Wow.
I mean, again, like I would have maybe a beef stick or something like that from time to time and a bar, and that would be what I'd have in like a 12-hour window. And I rationed them out so that I'd have enough during the trips, but you also have to be mindful about what you're carrying. I couldn't carry a bunch of stuff with me.
Right.
It's heavy. So I'm laying there and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, this is the moment. Like, this is what you train for. This is everything that you've done. And I guarantee that if you just rest for a little bit, you get your head into it, you'll have that second wind come in and you'll push. And so I laid there and I thought about it. You don't fall asleep, of course. And to give you some perspective on that experience, by the way, as you're so tired that you're falling asleep, this is what happens. I don't know if you've seen the movie Deadpool, the first one,
Mm-hmm.
and he's in that oxygen chamber. And they start to turn off the oxygen so he starts to pass out, and then they kick it back in right before his heart stops. That is the experience that you're having when you're trying to fall asleep. So you are literally so tired that you're like conking out and you're falling asleep, and right before you hit that deep sleep, you feel like your heart stopping and you gasp for air and you wake back up.
Oh,
It is excruciating. It's like torture.
yeah.
And so that's what you're experiencing if you're lucky. Because if you're not lucky, you fall asleep and then you don't wake back up.
Oh, man.
So fortunately,
So wait, hold on.
yeah.
So every time now you're dozing off. So you dozed off.
Mhm.
I mean, you're starting to doze off.
Mhm.
Every time you wake back up, you kick back in. Are you thinking, oh, shit, I almost just fell into
Yeah.
death?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. It's running through your head.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And you're just like, wow. Again, like I'm glad that I'm a light sleeper or whatever it is, like to wake back up
Right,
because
right.
shit, like that is that close.
That could have been it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So you have to really like try to prepare and be mentally
And this is Camp 4 now. This is called the death zone.
mm-hmm,
Okay, so what elevation are we at?
27,000 feet.
27,000.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And again, at this place, you know, it's a little flat area before you go to summit. There's debris from past tents, oxygen tanks. So you get some of that trash that people talk about. But it's a hard thing because everything's frozen. On top of that, there's also people that you have to walk past
Oh,
that are frozen into the mountain.
oh, man.
And there were several times where
A lot
know,
of people?
enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw probably half a dozen at least. Yeah, maybe more. I probably saw more that I didn't recognize were people. One time I saw,
Do
for
they
instance,
are the bodies they talk about across the mountain? Is this from one, let's say, season or round of climbs? Do they go back up and
No,
get some of these people are from decades ago?
there's one that's probably 30 years. Like I mean, there's people that have been there for a long time, and it's hard that they're trying to bring people down, and it's crazy the culture of climbing there. The Sherpas are so numb to this now, right? That I remember at base camp before we even left, the military was bringing bodies down, and they were stacking them up at the helipad. And one of the Sherpas turned to us while we were like having lunch one day, and he said, "Hey, do you want to go over to the helipad and see these bodies?"
Oh,
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that is a very odd question to ask. Like, no, I do not want to go see these dead bodies. Like, why would I want to see
I'm on
that?
my way up.
Yeah,
my
like,
guy. I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I'm like, no,
Yeah.
not even on the way down. Like, I just, no, that's no.
Uh-huh.
But that's how they think. They're just so immune to that experience because it happens so often. It just happens so often.
Wow.
And that's the humbling thing about this experience is that, again, getting back to that, I don't care how much money you have or what your training is. If you think that paying for a Sherpa to get you up Mount Everest is going to happen, it's not. Like you and those Sherpas are going to die. And it happens over and over again.
Do the Sherpas die often?
They don't, but there are times when they do, based on, weather changes. So for instance, this last season, just a month or so ago, Sherpas and climbers are dying because they get caught in the storm and, they're human too. And when you get caught in a storm and you can't go anywhere, people just freeze to death. So that happens often. And it's not as common, but, it does happen for sure. And so that is happening and you're passing people. I remember looking at like a backpack or something in the snow and the wind was blowing it, and then the wind blew hard enough to blow away the snow, and then you see like a leg and the full body, and you're like, okay, that's another person that you got to pass. And you are walking by these things. I mean, this is real life happening.
Not walking fast either.
Not walking fast.
Step by step.
Yeah. And this is slow. It's slow, methodical, enough to keep your body moving so you don't freeze to death, but not fast enough so that you're out of breath. That's the pace. And again, you hear these stories about people talking like, hey, you know, are you in these lines, all that kind of stuff. The reason that NIMS didn't want to go on the 19th was both weather and the fact that there was going to be a larger group. And so when we were on Camp 3 to Camp 4, there was another whole crew moving their way down. And they were going up a couple days before us to try to summit. And they looked defeated. And I thought to myself, okay, these people are just worn out, right? They had summited. And I asked one guy, hey, did you guys summit? And they said, no. We made it like an hour and a half to summit. And the weather was so bad that we had to turn around and come back down. And I just kept praying to myself, like, I hope that I don't have to make that decision, because that's going to be a really hard decision to make. That's where the ego then plays a big role. It's like, all right, all the money, all the time, all the commitment of being here, the family, everything. Do you risk it to try to push that? And if you watch the movie Everest, you'll see that that's probably not a good decision to make. But yeah, that was part of the reason why we didn't go, is because he could see that. And then there were also a lot of people. Now, when you're moving, they think, hey, you know, there's these lines. The truth is that nobody is racing up the mountain. Like, you're not trying to beat the guy in front of you up the mountain. Everybody is moving at like a snail's pace. And so when you see these lines that you're thinking, okay, you got to wait this long, it's not exactly accurate in the description. It's just the fact that everybody is moving that slow, and you're just following suit in one step, one step, one step. So again, it's all part of the process. There are some bottlenecks as you go through, like those vertical climbs, right? You got to match some things. And even going through the Khumbu Icefall, there is a section before you get to Camp 1 that's another vertical climb, and it's maybe 40 meters high. And the crazy thing is, I saw climbers that could not make that by themselves. They couldn't climb it. And so Sherpas would literally take off their backpack, pull that up on a rope, and then have two other guys pull the person up. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how are you going to do the rest of this trip if you can't get through this section by yourself? And how do you say that you then summited, even if you make it all the way up and come back down, if you couldn't do it by yourself? I just, for me personally, I don't think I would find that to be a victory. It'd be like somebody else taking the free throw for you
right
when you get the penalty. It's like, okay.
That happens. You get hurt. If you get injured and you got to shoot free throws, the guy who comes in has got to shoot the free throws.
Yeah.
In basketball, you'll take a win any way you can, but climbing a mountain, I don't think it.
Yeah.
We'll take it. We'll take it. As a matter of fact, get the best free throw shooter that never plays. Come on in. Come on in here. I'm going to take the shot now. I get it, though.
Yeah. And again, playing hockey growing up collegiately, like, it doesn't matter if you kick it in and trickles in, like, you'll take the goal.
Yeah, you'll take it. Yeah.
You take it. In this case, though, it's like,
it's a personal
thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not that you have pride or ego about it, but
that's why, too, because it's a personal thing versus it being a team thing.
Exactly.
In a team sport, you'll take the win any way possible.
Exactly.
In a personal endeavor, how it happens is personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, one of the things that they find to be a successful summit is that you have to go from base camp to summit, back down to base camp by yourself, like with your own 2 feet.
Still with the Sherpa, though.
Still with the Sherpa, but you got to actually do it yourself.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize is that more people die on the way down than they do on the way up.
Oh, that just killed me. I'm definitely not doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time here, I was thinking, I hate heights, but man, it feel good to do that.
Yeah.
You just killed it for me.
Yeah.
I'm not now on the way down.
That's where more people die.
That's crazy.
It is. And so again, you're at the death zone and you're making your way up. And I'll explain to you that part too. But I got up after an hour of resting, and that second wind hit, and I started to move. And it's about 11 o'clock at night, and it ended up taking us another 12 hours to get to summit. But on that process, that's where you start to see people from that section really fall apart. I saw people with eyes rolling in the back of their heads, vomiting blood, like just all different kinds of things. And you have to mentally keep yourself straight so that you can compartmentalize what you're doing versus what other people are doing so you don't end up dead. Now, on the South Summit, which is where the first climbers thought was the original summit, because you actually have to go back down a bit and then come back up, and you can't really see the summit if the weather's there. That section, there's about an hour and a half or so left. When we were getting up to that section, there was a gentleman in a yellow summit suit about 50 yards above us, 50 meters above us. And I was in front of my Sherpa climbing, and I looked up, and he looked like he was struggling to try to put his glove back on. And he then dropped it. And it was starting to fall towards me, and I was trying to like walk out on the rope to go further and further before the edge hit, and eventually the wind kept blowing it off, and so it fell off the mountain. And I realized, okay, this gentleman is really struggling. Something's going on with this guy. Now, there's one rope up, one rope down. So you pass people on the way up, you pass people on the way down, and you got to wait during those sections, which is another reason why people die on the way down, because you got to wait, and you're still at that elevation.
With altitude and the whole deal.
And you're completely
Frozen.
exhausted and frozen and everything.
Yeah.
But this guy, when we finally got up to him, we realized he was not strapped into the rope. His backpack was hanging off it, and he was maybe 3 or 4 feet off the rope. Now, again, you're at like 45 to 60 degree angles when you're climbing up this stuff. So all he had to do was stand up, and he would have fallen off the mountain and probably hit us and several other people.
Does that ever happen where a guy falls and hits somebody else and then kills them like that?
Yeah.
So not only do you have to worry about your own, health and willpower to get through this thing, you got to be conscious of these other climbers at certain.
And you got to be conscious of like ice shelves breaking off and falling, and like ladders shifting and falling. I mean, it's kind of like going in the Amazon and everything's poisonous. Like this is, everything could kill you, kind of thing.
Like in the movie Armageddon, he goes, tell me what it's going to be like. He goes, worst environment imaginable. Yeah. Okay, just say that. Cool. Worst environment imaginable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a bit. Yeah. Worst environment imaginable. That's a good description of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so we get to this guy and we realize, as I was telling you, things freeze. So the oxygen mask has a tube that connects to it. And that tube then connects to another tube that connects to your tank. So you can take off tanks and keep your mask on while you're doing it. The problem with that is that there's a little bit of air that can seep between those two connecting points. And that air is usually warm as it's coming out of your mouth, and it will then freeze. That moisture will freeze. And so if you don't crack that tube, the ice will build up, after about half an hour or so, or an hour, and it will then break entirely. And so then you'll lose all your oxygen through that tube, even though you're not really noticing it. And that's what was happening with this guy.
Mm.
Now, we had a team below us in our group, and there were 2 Sherpas for this one individual. And so there was extra gear. And so my Sherpa went back down and grabbed some extra gear for this guy, and I then helped get his backpack on and clip him back into the rope.
This is in the last 1,000 feet.
Yeah. This is in the last hour and a half of the climb. So again, I'm on 3 days, no sleeping, all this stuff happening, and we are now saving the life of another person. We then helped carry him to summit. And I remember images of his face being on my shoulder from time to time. As
you carried this guy to summit.
Yeah. Like he's walking with us and we're on his shoulder carrying him.
It's the craziest story I've ever heard.
Yeah, seriously. Because we couldn't just leave him there. I mean, he was still alive, he was still moving, and we had the ability to kind of, help. Now, I also had to be mindful of the fact that if you put too much exertion, like all of these things, but none of that kind of raced through my mind.
So when you say carry him, what do you mean? I mean, I'm imagining like, epic music and this guy's on your back.
Yeah, so
and you're
what I'm
taking-
saying is like arm over the shoulder, as if like a guy breaks his leg on a thing and you're kind of limping him
and he's
along.
hobbling.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of the thing.
Got
So
you.
he could still walk.
So at this point though, there's no vertical climb. This was a vertical climb. Now you're on somewhat of a
No, I mean, we had to go through the Hillary steps, which is the last portion of it, which is no wider than this table. And I mean from me to you, not this way. And it's just ice clips. So they're clipped into the ice shelf. There's no like rocks or anything like that. So you have to move up and down through that. It is super dangerous. And you are passing people going up and down while you're doing it. So they are unclipping. And again, if you fall off this, you are several thousand feet in the air to anything else that you would hit. I mean, there's no coming back. You are done. So we are carrying him through that section.
No.
All the way to summit.
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah. And it's crazy enough, I still have, like I said, like dreams where I turn around and his face is like on my shoulder, looking at me, breathing heavily, so that we could get him to summit. And the hope was that then he could rest long enough to have the oxygen to kind of make his way back down.
Mm.
And what we found out is when we finally got him to summit, he had a picture of his dad who was like a guide or something like that, and he was trying to pay homage to his father that had passed. But because we were there with him and trying to make sure that he was okay, we were there 3 times longer at summit than you're supposed to spend. We were there for about 45 minutes, making sure that he was okay. And that also becomes a risk factor too, because then the weather can change, you're running out of oxygen. So all these things start to click. And I wasn't like thinking about any of that when that was happening. I wasn't like, oh, I'm risking my own life doing this. How long are we staying here? Like eventually I looked at my watch and I was like, okay, shoot, like we need to go. We need to move. But we were one of the first couple of people up from our crew and met other people as they were coming through it and had the opportunity. And we sat there with him and got him acclimated and he felt better. I don't know if he made it back home. I don't know if he made it back down. What I do know is that we got him successfully to the summit. And if it wasn't for us, he probably would have been dead on that mountain. Because I don't know how many other crews were with him. And he did not have a Sherpa. He was by himself at this point. So I don't know if his Sherpa left him or if he even had one to begin with or what was going on. He didn't speak English. So I didn't even get to like know his name or talk to him. We just helped guide him through it. And there's pictures too in the video that I created when I was posting that flag up of Everest and thanking people for the experience. He's kind of in the background there, sitting there like getting himself organized. And he had seemed to have more oxygen because of what we brought at the time and seemed to kind of have the wherewithal that he was climbing and knew at that point kind of came back to him, but then he had to make his way back down. So again, going through that ice shelf, we had spent another 12, 13 hours just to get to the summit. Now we have to make our way back down. We're only halfway there. That's why people die on the way down, is they spend all of their energy, all their exertion trying to reach that summit thinking that this is the pinnacle, right? And in a lot of ways it is. It's remarkable. The view is unlike any other. But you're only halfway to the journey. And you got to come back down and you got to then go pass that on to other people. And so what happens is people, let's say you climb a tree as a kid. Getting up is easy.
Getting
down is not
tricky.
It's not always easy.
Yeah.
And so people get scared. And again, you're rappelling down, which means you're facing backwards.
Which is even more scary.
Yeah. And going through, and you have to wait for people to go from one rope to the next because there's people going up as you're going down. So it's a slow process. Now, on the other 2 mountains, I had learned this Sherpa's rappel, which is a front-facing rappel. So you are not strapped in the sense like you have it on a carabiner, like a figure eight. You're using the carabiners that you have on your ropes to twist and turn into the rope to slow you down. So the advantage is that you can front face and you can move really quickly. And that's what I use to pass quite a few people on the way down, because then you can unclip, go, because we were trying to make up some time. Not everybody knows how to do that. And it also takes an exceptional amount of strength because you are now exhausted. And if you let go of those ropes, you're not on a harness to that sense. Like you're just on a rope around a carabiner, you're falling off the face of the mountain. And then you're going to hit everybody on the way down and whatever else, rocks, ice,
Yeah.
you're not coming home. But that helped me save quite a bit of time. We ended up passing quite a few people that were then getting wrapped up in sleeping bags and lowered down. Sherpas like help carrying people down. Kind of becomes a free-for-all, and it starts to become really real again in that sense, and it's kind of this race to the bottom. We made it back to Camp 4. It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and at this point, we again rested for about 45 minutes, got a bottle of water going, and now I'm on like 3+ days of not sleeping. And the goal is...
I'm on a 3-day water fast. My guy was on a 3-day sleeping fast. Yeah. Different world.
Yeah, for sure. And believe me, fasting in general is not fun.
Yeah, not easy.
So doing that without sleeping on top of it
is a whole nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
but are you just exhilarated right now at the same time?
You are. You're kind of like, there's so many emotions going on. So when I was at Summit, because we were working to save this guy's life, like it didn't hit me as everything was happening. It was kind of almost anticlimactic. It was like, all right, we need to save this guy. We need to take some pictures. We need to do all this stuff. There's so many things happening, so many stimulus, but you're also standing on the top of the world, the highest point on the planet. Nobody else is, there. It's just remarkable. And so all of these things are hitting at once, and it's exhilarating. Like it gives you another burst of energy, and you're like, cool, I want to get down. I want to be safe. And eventually if you get back to base camp, then you've kind of made it. And even then to Kathmandu, then you're home stretch.
And just as a refresher, nobody's coming to get you here.
Nobody's coming to get you.
You got to make it all the way back. You got to make it back down to
Camp 2.
21,000?
22,000.
You got to make it back down to 20. You got to make it back down 7,000 feet before anybody could even come get you in an emergency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can't sleep at Camp 4, so you can't rest there.
Yeah.
Again, that's where you go to die. That's why they call it the death zone. It is not your friend. And so I don't care even if you're NIMS. Like NIMS doesn't sleep there. You just can't. You can't survive. There's nothing that can survive at that altitude. So we rested there for about 45 minutes, made some more water, and kept pushing. Now, eventually we're starting to get into the middle of the night, and I'm still front rappelling. I'm getting to the point where I can't physically use my hands and my feet. Like I'm toasted.
Frozen.
Yeah. And so I slipped on this ice shelf on the way down and started to slide about 30, 40 feet before I caught myself. And I again then like took a huge deep breath and thought, all right, like we need to get to Camp 3 and rest for a little bit, a couple hours at least, because I can't keep doing this.
So wait a minute, you hold on. Don't just, you slid.
Yeah.
You slid 30 or 40 feet down at an incline?
Yeah,
what
actually,
angle is
I would say meters. I mean, it is steep. We're talking 45 to 60 degree angle. I mean, I'm falling off the mountain and I'm holding on. Like it's one of those scenes from the movie, you're holding on, the rope is burning through your hands and you're just trying to grab it as fast as you can. And I stopped about 4 or 5 feet from the next anchor. And if I had hit that, it probably would have broken that and maybe broken my leg or something else. And the guys below me were sitting there watching. They were standing there watching as this was happening. And they didn't move to the next anchor because they saw me coming. And, we all have headlamps on and stuff. It's hard to see, but they're watching this thing like going way faster than anybody else is going. So I stopped and I caught myself and I just sat there then. Like I put my crampons into the snow, sat back, and I just tried to relax and rest for a bit, catch my breath, and like wrap my head around what just happened because I could have been dead for sure. And so my Sherpa finally catches back up to us and he said, hey, look, we only got about a half an hour or so left. We're at Camp 3. We can rest for a few hours. The Sherpa below us then that saw all this happen was kind enough to actually hand us an apple and a little bottle of Coke. And when we got down to Camp 3 finally, which again is at 25,000 feet, I took a knife out that I had. I cut that in half. I gave half to my Sherpa, and that's what we had for dinner that night. It was a couple of sips of Coke and half an apple.
How good was that apple?
Oh my God. It was amazing. Like the first solid food, it was phenomenal. Yeah. The sugar, just
biblical.
Yeah.
Getting an apple.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
So because we had taken so long at Summit to help this guy, at this point I have 30% oxygen left in my last tank. It's got to get me through a couple hours of that night and all the way back down to Camp 2. So we turned the dial down to a fraction of what it's supposed to be at just to keep it pumping, just to keep your heart going. But I mean, you are at low oxygen levels at this point, and I am feeling completely wrecked. I did a little video documentary of it, which is the picture that I took recently in my Instagram, and it shows my face wind-beaten, sun-beaten, dehydrated. I lost 17 pounds on that trip, by the way. And I'm not a very big guy to begin with. 17 pounds. A lot of weight. And I just remember I had half of this Alani Nu pack, this energy pack, some ibuprofen and an extra bar that I found that was frozen. And so I put that in my chest pocket so it could thaw. I put that little caffeine in there, and I had maybe, a third of the water bottle left. And that had to get me through a couple hours while I'm resting there. And then we had to get up and make our way to Camp 2. I mean, it was everything I had left to make sure that I wasn't going to stay there. And that's really, I think, what is most remarkable about these kind of adventures and these kind of trips. Similar to getting sober, right? You are so defeated in the experience. And all you want is somebody to come by and help you out. And what you have to realize is that a lot of times you're the one that has to make that decision. You're the one that has to keep going. Even when you think you can't go anymore, even when you think that your body is physically done, your mind is physically done, your mind will say, hey, I'm done. I'm over this. But what you don't realize is that your body is so much more capable if you push through. Again, I guarantee with this fast, you're going through the minds thinking, I'm hungry, I want this, I want that.
Pancakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly. Sounds delicious. And, but if you push through that point, right, and you start to focus on other things, you realize, okay, I can get through that. Again, it's just a little bit more. And that's the great thing about it. And that was really the story that I was trying to show people, is that if you give yourself the ability to push past what you think you're capable of doing, you're gonna surprise yourself. You're gonna do things that are remarkable, and then your bar becomes higher. Then your standard becomes higher, and you're like, wow, I did these things that were so difficult. What else can I do in my life? What else can I push through? And it's hopefully then a metaphor for everything else that comes in your life and says, well, this isn't that bad. Life isn't that bad, or this is circumstance I can get through. So
I'm sure. I mean, I could only imagine your comparison for what's terrible must be the threshold must be in a whole nother world now.
It's remarkable.
Does it ever happen? Do you work out something? Is that kind of is it hard to find a challenge when it comes to working out every day because you've been through something so grueling?
It is. I mean, it's not the same, of course, right? And as you start to come back down, the level is different, right? I mean, so you do competition, you do a basketball game, you do whatever it is, a hard workout. If you get to the point where you're physically broken down, mentally broken down, you can stop. If you had to in the middle of a game, you could stop. Even at the pro level, you could stop. And you could sit down on the sidelines and nothing's going to happen. Like, sure, there might be some ego to that. There might be the other teammates being like, hey,
embarrassment, people be,
whatever,
talking shit to
whatever,
you.
yeah. But
you're going to survive.
You live to fight another day.
Right.
If you give up on the mountain, you are not coming home. Like, that is it. You give up, you die. That is it.
Yeah.
And so the risk reward factor, like, okay, challenge and the exception of okay, I'm really struggling today, I'm dehydrated today. That's not even a factor that goes into the workouts today. Like, if I'm dehydrated, sure, you just push through it. If I'm tired, sure, you push through it. But that's one of the things that I do notice is that I'm able to do those things and push through them and just recognize the fact that, like, yeah, I'm tired today. Yeah, maybe I didn't eat as much yesterday. Maybe I didn't sleep as much yesterday. Maybe I'm going through a lot of stress with my life, my business, whatever it might look like, my family dynamics. But it is just a temporary thing. It's just a temporary part of your life where you're uncomfortable. And again, if you can get wrapped around the fact that that is growth happening, right? It is the challenge to push you, to get you to better, the better person that you want to become, the idea that you want to become. It's easy to kind of walk through that, right? And yeah, when you go and climb Everest, there's not much more that you look at in life, or you get sober from heroin, you look at in life and you're like, I could do anything.
Yeah.
There's anything possible.
Yeah.
But you don't have, like, I'm not some superhuman being, right? I am just a guy, and what I have been able to do is remind myself that I am capable of all these things. And if I put my mind into it and I believe that with every fiber in my body, then maybe there's moments where I become a superhero, and that could be with anything. That could be in your career. That could be changing your life circumstances. That could be living out of your car to becoming something successful. Those stories happen, right? But you have to believe that you can become that. And if you believe it and you have then people around you that you surround yourself that also encourage you, right? You will become that. And there's this limiting factor that I find in people, and that's why the circles that you run with are so important, right? If you look out, it's not just about being around that and saying, oh, okay, I can do that too. It's about the mentality of it, right? If you're running in circles that push you and hold you accountable, right, to be a better person, to be a better human, to be more successful, to keep pushing in your workouts, whatever that looks like, and you see them going through it, right, that is the new bar. But if you're hanging around people and the success level looks to a certain level, right, and it's not where you envision yourself, it's really hard to get out of that. It's really hard to get out of that circumstance and say, well, what does my life look like in the future? Because everything that you envision for yourself is actually based on the prior experiences that you've had. So if you don't know what it looks like to be wealthy or to be, in fitness that you want to have, or the body that you want to have, or the relationships that you want to have, because you've never experienced that. Maybe your family never had that. Maybe your friends don't have that. It's really difficult to envision what that would look like. So when you go and you find these other people that have that and you grasp onto that, that becomes the new bar. That becomes the new limiting factor. And what I've found, truthfully, there's no ceiling. There's no ceiling for what you can do, for what I can do, for anybody. And I'm not the one to tell you what that ceiling looks like, because there isn't. Whatever you believe you can accomplish, I'm not the one to say that it isn't true. It's only for you to decide that. And from what I've experienced in my own life, I haven't seen that bar yet. I don't think it exists. I think it only exists in your head. And you are the mountain. That is the truth. The mountain is not Everest. The mountain is not any of these other things. You are the mountain. And you live it every day. right? And so, yeah, climbing Everest is remarkable. And if I look at it, I did a Google search. I'd love to find more people, but I have only found one other person, 2005, in Minnesota to summit Mount Everest successfully.
Wow.
So I'm one of two people.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's less than 800 Americans in the 75 years of summiting that have done it successfully. And less than 8,000 people in the world to ever do it. So the percentage is like 0.0000,
Yeah.
it's small. It's a small amount of people. But at the same time, I can guarantee that people going through losing a family member, whether it's to suicide or to cancer or just, old age, I don't care what it is, or struggling financially. Like all of those things seem like an Everest to you.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so what I did as part of this collaboration with Hazel and Betty Ford is I actually started a nonprofit called Let's Fuel Growth. And as part of that, we do experiential events and adventures and one-day summits and these kind of things. And we end those one-day things with sharing our own Everest stories, what that looks like, right? And sharing something that in our life we think is impossible. And we use then the community to share with that individual what we have gone through to maybe accomplish those things, similar things. Or if you've gone through something that you felt was impossible and how you've then accomplished it, and you share that. But everybody has their own Everest. Everybody does. It doesn't have to be a physical mountain, right? Climbing to the next level of what your life looks like in terms of success. And I imagine success in my own life is not just the monetary thing. It's not just the professional thing. It's in every aspect. It's the spirituality. It's the holistic approach to health. It's the physical presence that I show up with. It's how I treat other people, how I talk to other people. Like that is true success. Monetary aspects of it, business aspects of it, that's one pillar of it. But if you could be super wealthy and, treat your family like shit, that doesn't look very good at the end of the day. Or you could be poor and treat your family amazing. That could be a better circumstance. It just depends on what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish. But I feel like you need to have a good rounded base for all of these things to say, yeah, I'm doing well in life. But I digress a bit, getting back into Everest.
Yeah.
After hitting Camp 3, we finally made our way back down to Camp 2. It was quite a haul. And I remember thinking to myself, water. I just kept saying water in my head. That's all I wanted. And I got to Camp 2, and this is the point where you can finally take off the oxygen mask. You get a meal. And so they gave me this cold Fanta, and I have to tell you, I hadn't had many in years, but that was probably the best thing I've ever had in a long time, dude. It was.
What flavor was it?
It was orange Fanta. Oh my God. It was phenomenal. I was just like, this is heaven right here in my mouth. It was perfect. And they made me some fried rice with some eggs, some powdered eggs. And I was just like, oh, a warm meal. It wasn't frozen. And I got to chill out and relax a little bit. Of 17 people, there were 3 or 4 that did not successfully summit, that had to turn around. Fortunately, nobody in our group died. But I was only one of 6, I believe, in our crew to go from summit to base camp to summit. The rest of people had to get helicoptered out of Camp 2. Like I said, the one gentleman with 50% oxygen. There's another guy so many people were just falling apart on the way down. When we sat at Camp 2, I started to get a fever. And I realized that my adrenals had been going to the max. Again, we're at almost 4 days of not sleeping now. You don't really rest there too much too, because you can't sleep in a hot tent. You start to get dehydrated, and really, again, after that point, you kind of just want to keep making your way. But we had to move through the ice fall at a part where it was a little bit colder, so we had to wait a couple hours before we could move down. So I sat up in the tent. I tried to drink as much water as I could. I got in about a liter. Again, this is boiling water, so it takes a while to consume it. And we packed things up, and I took some ibuprofen or whatever, and realized, like, again, my fever wasn't coming down. And I think part of it, like acclimating on the way up or scuba diving, when you're going up as well, you got to go at a slower pace. You can't just like go from the bottom all the way up. And same with mountaineering, like you have to make your way down in a good pace too. And I was coming down pretty quickly, which was then triggering some things elevation wise. A storm was rolling in, and it was just me and my Sherpa making our way back down. The storm started hitting about 6 o'clock in the evening, and we were with a crew, another group of 3 people, and the storm was sitting so bad that we tied each other, like I tied myself to my Sherpa and vice versa. And as we're going through from Camp 2 to Camp 1, that's that crevasse field again. I remember taking a step and my foot fell through one of the ledges. And fortunately, I fell forward and caught my knee on the ledge. But again, it was another one of those moments where had it been both of my feet, my Sherpa was going to be falling backwards and holding on to me, and hopefully we would have both been okay. But again, it was another one of those God moments, those lucky moments where it's pretty close. And it just kept me awake, kept me aware, like, hey, I'm still not through this. Like, we still have to go through the ice fall, which again is the most dangerous part. Now, it took 5 days to get from base camp to summit and 2 days for me to get back all the way to base camp. So as we're moving through it, even in that 7-day period,
2 days for you to get back to base camp from the summit.
From the summit, I went down fast. Yeah.
He said that's fast.
That's fast. Yeah.
Based on how far long it took you to go up. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, it was fast. Most take 3 or 4 days for sure, because they take the process of moving down, and you some people rest at Camp 2 again. It just depends on when you get there. And then, for some people it's a helicopter, so that takes time too, and depending on the weather and getting up there as well. But I moved pretty quickly and was probably the second or third to finally get down to base camp. But I remember with this storm, it was a complete whiteout, and we lost the other 3 people that were coming down at the same time. They had gone a different direction. A lot of the ropes had melted at this point through the icefall. Ladders had been shifting. Some of them were tilted. You had to make your way through it. And there were several sections where we couldn't connect to a rope. It had fallen off. And so the Sherpa, Passan, had turned to me and was like, look, for the next 20, 30 minutes, you need to move as fast as you can. Now, again, I am like destroyed physically. And so when he's telling you you need to move as fast as you can, you just kind of laugh to yourself. You're like, I don't know what that looks like at this point, but sure, I will try to do my best at whatever that is. But we couldn't see anything. And I kept praying to myself. I'm like, man, I hope that this is the last 15 steps that I got to take. And I kept saying, God, like, please be the end of this. Please be the end of this. Because it was complete whiteout. And so it's kind of discouraging not knowing how much longer you have when you can't see the end. You're just walking into this abyss. And you're like, hopefully this will be the last part. And he kept promising, eventually we're going to be there. We're going to be there. And sure enough, then we finally get back into base camp and we walk in, and it's about 12 o'clock, 12:30. And like I said, I was probably the second or third person of our crew to make it in. And we had been on the radio comms with the kitchen, kind of letting them know, like, hey, we need a meal. And they made me, they're like, hey, what do you want? And so the chef was kind enough to wake back up. And I was like, I need salt. Like, I need something with sodium in it because I'm so like dehydrated, and I want something hot. And he was like, cool. And he made me like chicken tenders with fries. And I got back to the camp and I pulled out an iPad that I had, and I sat at the food camp and I turned on Gladiator. And I sat there and watched some of Gladiator while I was eating my fries and chicken tenders. And we were just laughing together and just like, holy shit, man, we did it.
Wow.
So eventually the next morning, I was still kind of feverish from coming down quickly. They were able to get me a helicopter. And I packed up all my stuff with the kitchen staff. They were cool enough to do that with me. And I flew out to Kathmandu, and I got there about 10, 11 o'clock in the morning the next day. I slept a little bit that evening, and I wanted to contact my wife. I had this Garmin that I kept, this Garmin radio, and so I pre-programmed it to let people know when I was at different camps. So, hey, I'm safely at Camp 2. Hey, I'm safely at Camp 3. And so people could follow me as I was going through this journey. It actually connected to Facebook, and it would ping where I was at. And so I texted my wife and said, look, I'm safe. I'm at home. I just need some time to process all of this when I got to base camp. I got back to Kathmandu and checked in with a doctor just to make sure I was healthy and everything was good. My face was so wrecked. I was like, man, I want to get a facial or something, just get some moisture. And I went down and they laughed at me. They're like, no, we can't touch your face. You'd probably need a few days just to heal. But I remember going and sitting in the shower, and I just sat there for an hour just in the heat, just let the water absorb. I drank 2-3 bottles of water. It wasn't boiling this time. There wasn't sediment in it. It was just nice filtered water. And then I went down to the buffet, and I tried to regain some of the 17 pounds that I had lost by just eating as much food as I could.
Did it hurt your stomach?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My stomach was so small at that point. So I was like, you'd eat a little bit, you get super full, and you're like, no, I want to eat more. And it just was so good. So, yeah, I spent a couple of days then at the hotel, and then eventually made my way back. It's a long trip on an airplane. It took 36 hours to get home.
Yeah.
But when I was flying from base camp back to Kathmandu, that's finally when it hit me in the helicopter. I was listening to Thunderstorm's music again, and I started to tear up and cry again. And I was just like, fuck, dude, you just summited Mount Everest.
Wow.
And it was just this remarkable experience for me. And I remember finally getting home, and my kids and my wife had this banner up welcome home. And I got to hug everybody and feel them again and just experience that. And it was one hell of a journey, certainly a journey. A lot of questions that I get sometimes is, would you do it again? The answer is no, and I wouldn't recommend it for anybody either. It's not, it's not for the faint of heart. So
yeah.
To give you another example of why it's so unpredictable, the day after we summited was another good weather window, but there was a lot of people, and on those Hillary steps, the snow was hitting. There was a lot of people on the ropes at the time, and it melted the ice shelf, and it collapsed, and 6 people fell. And it was the same spot that I was on the day prior.
No.
Doing the same exact thing, and it's just roulette, Russian roulette. I could have been. There's no difference between me and them. It just was 12
Do you ever
hour
have dreams where you're falling or that?
Yeah. So when I got home, I actually had some PTSD for a bit. I have to admit, it took me 3 or 4 months to really acclimate back, get my strength back. I was pretty weak for a while, but I was waking up first couple of weeks in nightmares. I would pinch myself. My wife would be like, "You're okay." I would be thinking I was dying or something. It's crazy because, again, you're seeing things that most people will never see in their life.
Yeah.
You're experiencing things that most people will never experience. And again, having to process seeing dead people on a regular basis and walking past them and seeing your friends and colleagues collapsing, and it's just a lot. It's a lot to take in emotionally.
Yeah.
And so again, you have to know yourself. You have to understand yourself. You have to be really comfortable with who you are and know yourself physically, but also know yourself mentally. And be prepared for all that stuff. But taking that into the next journey, that's where I'm excited about. It's about sharing that adventure with people. And like I said, through the nonprofit, the Let's Fuel Growth organization.
What's the website?
It's letsfuelgrowth.org.
Okay.
And that is something that we're building up. We're going to be doing an event in January. It's actually going to be out at sauna camps. So we're going to do a snowshoe hike in the morning, and then follow that up with some cold plunge therapy in the lake there and in saunas, and then follow it up with like speakers. So we have speakers come in and get to share different experiences about mental health, about business, about family. We really make it a holistic kind of event, and then follow it up with a meal and some stories by the fire. So it'll be a good day. It'll probably be January 31st.
Okay.
And it's open to the public, and most of it is donation based. So we try to make it accessible to everybody. So what you can give at the time. But we had 16 people show up to the first event in September. They said it was one of the best events they've ever done personally, and they're really looking forward to it. So we're hoping to have about 30 people in this next trip. But another trip that we're doing with NIMS Day, and again, this is open to the public. It's about $3,000 for the adventure, but we're going to hike out to base camp, and it's about a 2-week trip. We're leaving April 1st of 2026. And for anybody that would ever be interested in going out and maybe just experiencing that part, it is much safer, I guarantee, than going out to trying to climb any of the mountains. And we will go through a process of making it, slow enough to acclimate and really like take our time with that, and help with physical training if people are interested in that. And again, but it should be a great adventure. And for those that are interested in that kind of thing, it'll be pretty fun. But these are some of the trips that we're going to be doing, some of the events that we're going to be doing. But it's really just about building the community. It's not just for people that are in recovery or struggling with mental health.
Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody that either deals with depression or addiction or something, right? And so it's about learning as a community how to talk about these things, how to be comfortable with this conversation, so that one day, if it comes up in your life, you can be of service. You can help others that are struggling with it, or maybe even yourself. And so that's the next adventure of this kind of trip. But yeah, it's been fun.
Man, incredible story. Congratulations to
Thank you.
I'm glad you came home. I remember we did the
Too.
interview, and I'm thinking to myself, every once in a while, I'm like, I wonder if my guy summited that mountain. I'm wondering if my guy summited that mountain. So I'm glad to see you in person again. Crazy story to hear that 6 people fell the day after you summited. That's just that tells, that says everything about how dangerous it really is. Any parting shots here? We're going to wrap up, and I really appreciate you sharing your story. Such an incredible accomplishment, especially as one of the only Minnesotans to do it.
Yeah.
Just thankful for you to be here, man, and share your story. Any parting shots for you, sir?
Yeah. And again, I think that, like I said, everybody has an Everest in their life, right? And if you are struggling with addiction, with anxiety, with depression, like you said to that woman, don't give up. Ask for help. Reach out to somebody. There are so many different organizations. There's so many different people that if you just let them know that you're struggling, they will help you. You'll be surprised at how many people actually come out to say, yeah, I'm going to raise my hand and I'm going to be of service to you. So just make sure that you don't give up. I have lost family members to suicide, to drug addiction, and it is never the right choice. It is never the right decision. And I know that it feels that way maybe in the moment, but it's just a fleeting moment. If you can just push past that and reach your hand out and say, hey, I'm struggling. Everybody is. Everybody at some point in their life is going to go through something difficult. And it is not about ego. It is not about whether or not you're good enough or worthy enough, right? It is a part of life. It is a part of the human process. And so you don't need to be ashamed of these experiences. What you need to do is share that so that you can work through it and then hopefully help somebody else at some point. So again, if you're interested in learning more, the organization is called letsfuelgrowth.org. There's plenty of information on that to learn more. And again, just keep going, man. Keep going.
Thank you, sir. God bless you. Wow, Ryan Rivard. Am I saying the last name
You're
right?
saying it right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Ryan Rivard climbed Mount Everest, overcame heroin addiction, still overcoming that, 23 years sober, overcame Mount Everest, rare feat for a man to do, for a human being to do. And we appreciate him being in. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I surely did. I'm on the edge of my seat here. And every time you describe one of those meals you got on the way down, my fast is kicking me in my ass. I'm going to go get some water and some salt here. But thank you for sharing. We appreciate your viewership and leadership out there in the audience today and in the future. And we hope you draw some inspiration from Ryan's story. We talk a lot of politics on the show, but there are things much bigger than politics, and climbing to the top of a mountain is certainly on that short list. Thank you all for being here again. God bless you. Godspeed. God bless America. Shout out to Ryan Rivard and his family. We're glad you're home, man. That's it for me. We'll see you tomorrow evening. We got the great Chris Martinson to talk about economics and other things of that nature in his wheelhouse as a PhD and one of the smartest men I know. So thank you for being here again this evening, and we'll catch you tomorrow night. Everything's up on the bar. We're all in. We get to decide. Do you want to live on your knees, or do you want to die on your feet fighting? That's the decision you get to make now.